Okay, so you haven't started your course project yet. Don't worry, I got you. We're going to start on it now and we'll get you up to speed in no time. First, go to the course project overview. And here you're going to see the basic requirements for the course, what's due, what you have to submit in the end. It's going to be done in increments. So we'll start in week 4 and have a finished product in the end. Now, this is a guess the number program. In the game, you'll give the user a choice with a menu. The user can choose to guess a number, type a number, and see how fast the computer can guess it, and exit the game. So that's the 3 choices for the menu. Initially, the program will just have the user guess the number, and each week adds more functionality. Okay. Next, we're going to go to the week 4 course project tab. That's where we have to start. Okay, on the week 4 course project tab, you'll see the report template. Download this report. We're going to fill it in just a minute. You can create a program, or you're going to create a program that asks the user to guess a number between 1 and 10. They've given us some pseudocode down here and told us to import random at the beginning of the code and use a comment block explaining what your program does. All right, so that would be this part, the shebang. So we'll type that in a few minutes. In fact, I'll probably copy that part and paste it in mine when I get there, just as a side sheet to make it a little bit easier. When you run your program, the results should be something like this. So let's say the number is 2 in this case. They guessed 5, that was too high. 4 was too high. 3 was too high. And then 2, you guessed it. Okay. We also want, said something about screenshots. Maybe that's in my report template, which is where I'm going next. All right. In the report template, I'm going to fill in my IPO chart. My input is the guess. My process is if the guess is less than my number, then I'll display too low. If the guess is greater than my number, then I'll display too high. If my guess is equal to the number, then I'll display you guessed it. Okay, so we're going to start writing our code. I'm going to run idle. And you'll want to create a new file. And I don't like starting from scratch, so I always start with something in my toolkit, and this time I'm going to use my while loop that checks for yes or no. Okay, so we want to start with this, and I can run just this part and make sure this works. If I say yes, it should go back to the beginning. If I say no, it should quit. Okay, and that's where I'll start. Okay, from there I'm going to use my pseudocode to help me build my code. And like I said, I'm going to take my shebang and copy it into here. And it did not like that at all. Or it moved on me, that's what it was, okay. Alright, so I already got my name in there. We use a random number and loop while true. Ask the user for a number. We don't loop while true, loop while no. Loop while yes. Until no. Yeah, I said that right. Ask user for the number. If the number is too high or too low, tell the user. If they guessed it, break out of the loop. Okay. And we're not going to break out, actually. We're going to ask them if they want to do it again. But the first thing we need to do before we get too far into here is do our import for random. Okay, that's going to allow us to use the random command. And I'm going to use random to generate my number that you have to guess, that the user has to guess. And I want a random integer between 1 and 10. I'm going to give the user a certain number of guesses, but I want it to start out at 1. Now you can determine how many guesses you want to give the user by setting up this loop. I can give them 3 guesses. I can give them 5 guesses. I can give them 10 guesses. Depends on how many guesses you want to give them. To make troubleshooting easier, I go with 3, and that way I don't have to go through the loop 5 times to test everything. If you want to do 5, 5 is good. That gives you plenty of flexibility when you're running your test cases. Okay, once inside that while, I want to then get the input from the user, or get the guess from the user. And I'm going to make guess an input. Oops. And I wouldn't take the time to type this in, but I've been told when I don't, or when I do, it makes it easier to follow. All right, after we get the guess from the user, I then want to convert that guess into an input, and you'll see why I didn't, or convert it to an integer, and you'll see why I didn't do that later on, or why I didn't do it when I read it in later on. Then I want to check to see if my guess is less than my number. If it is, then I print out a message and let them know that it's too low. And if it's not, then I want it to check and see if their guess is greater than my number. And if it is, then I'll print out the message and tell them that it's too high. If it's neither of those, if it's not too high and it's not too low, then guesses is probably equal to my num. And we'll print, you guessed it. Okay, and since we're keeping track of guesses, we also need to increment guesses in here. So we'll say guesses plus equal 1, and that takes 1 and adds it to guesses. And it won't let me do what I want to do. I'm going to then copy that and add it in down here as well. That way we're incrementing guesses every time they guess and they go through the loop. It increments guess by 1 if it's too high or if it's too low, but not if they guessed it, because once they guess it, then we want to quit and ask them if they want to play the game again. Okay, so let's check this, and at this point we're not trying to determine if anything's too high or too low. We're not worried about a menu, just worry about getting this part done. And as soon as you get this part done, we're done with week 4, and we'll move on. I'll have another video to move you on to week 5. Okay, so when we run this, guess a number 5, I always start in the middle. That's too high, so I'll go down, and it was 4, so I guessed it. Now, it did not quit, it went back up, and it's still continuing to ask me to play. So what I want to do is quit here if they guessed it. So I'm going to tell it to break. All right, now let's try that one more time. 5 is too low, so I go up, and now you see the break caused it to come out of the guesses loop and jump down and ask me if I want to play again. So if I say yes, it should go back into the game. Twice it was 7, not so random. This time no. All right, and that's all we need for week 4. You take this and the screenshots of your program. You'll actually copy your code. Do not take a screenshot of it. Copy your code. Paste it into your document. Get your screenshots. Paste your screenshots. And then submit that for week 4.